And we're back. You're going to meet our second guest in just a couple of minutes, but first, let's take a look at some of his work. Check out the wooden handle. These are for throwing, my friend. It's quite a sport that's caught on, not only here, but around the country and around the world. And these were made by our next guest, or this one. Here's another one. These are for throwing. And it just so happens Stephen Neal, who is our guest, is also ranked nationally, or in the world, I guess.
Yep, internationally.
What's your rank?
Right now, after this most current season, it was about 37th overall.
And that's worldwide?
That's worldwide.
Holy Toledo. We have a big contest coming up we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes.
Yes.
First, you brought with you on the set the axe that we just saw.
Yes, sir.
Where does it start? Does it start with that piece of wood?
Yeah, so these axes all start off as just a piece of wood that I've glued up. Normally you won't see a mono wood handle unless it's something like ash or hickory or something that's renowned for that sort of tensile strength. Mm-hmm. So for throwers, because we're not chopping into wood all the time, we can afford to get a little fancier with what we do, and most of the people that throw have rather expensive tastes, so they like to show off a little bit with their handles. So this particular one has a hickory core, some dyed purple maple veneers, and then the wood on the outside is another piece of maple that's got some burl, some spalting, heartwood, softwood, so it really brings a lot of good contrast. And then whenever you oil it up, it winds up looking more like this one.
So what some people might see as a flaw, you see as a strength.
Right, so because it makes it more visually interesting. And since we're not as worried about structural integrity, then we can afford to embrace those potential flaws a little bit more.
Do you work the head of the axe yourself?
If it needs it, I will. This one came to me kind of rough, so I cleaned up the pole a little bit. I chamfered some of the edges around, just kind of put a nice satin finish on it. But for the most part, I'm usually more on the wood side of things.
I'd be curious to know how this all started for you. Did you just venture in and start throwing axes at one? I've done it.
Right.
I've gone, I gave it a try. I didn't kill anybody, but
I haven't either yet.
I was surprised to learn that there are folks who are quite good at it, yourself included.
Mm-hmm. So I actually got started doing this. I was, like many guys in the 90s, I was in the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts. And so, we would go on these camping trips and we would have these rendezvous mountain man type people come over and they'd bring their tomahawks and their knives and we'd throw those, and then I just fell in love with it. So when I turned 18, I bought myself my first tomahawks and set up I had no clue what I was doing. I had treated oak as my target, so of course it was harder than a brick. But I threw at it, and sometimes it stuck, sometimes it didn't, but that's where the passion came from. And then I found out that people did it more seriously than that, and I just kind of dipped my toe in there, and the bug bit pretty hard.
I can imagine. It's an intriguing sport because it's not a blood sport, really.
Right.
But it is at the same time. And you work a target. You've got a target that's posted.
Correct.
And what do you get? 2 spins, 3 spins out of it?
So the rules are a little complicated. It used to be you just had to do 1 spin, and you're good to go. Fault line's about 12 feet. Point values go from 1 to 6, with the potential shot at 8 points. But it's either an all or nothing kind of deal. But then this year they came out with some new rule sets that require you on the second half of your game to step back to a further fault line. So you can either do 2 spin, 1.5, where instead of throwing with the blade facing forward, you actually had the blade facing backwards. So when it sticks, the handle's facing upwards.
Oh, really?
Yes. Oh,
I'd just fail that immediately.
There have been a few broken handles because of it,
Yeah.
which of course makes people like me a little happier because it means more business, but at the same time it means more frustration on the parts of throwers.
What do other throwers think of your work?
I've only been doing it for a little bit. I've been doing it for about a year or so, and I really don't put a lot out there. I'm a teacher, by day, and an axe thrower by night and by weekends. So, the work I've done has been received fairly well. You'll notice in the clip that's being shown right now, I angle it where you can see down the handle towards the head and from the head down the handle. That's all to check alignment. So it's not just to see how things go, but it's to show that the blade is in line with the handle so that it's aerodynamically sound, and you can see the wedges and you'll know it's tight. And then you can look down the blade and see that there's no twist and that it's aligned properly.
Wow, there's a lot more to it than
Yeah.
meets the eye. if you will.
Aerodynamics mean a lot more with this.
Aerodynamics play a role in it. Can you possibly foul up an axe?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Sometimes, like if the handle you're using is too heavy for the head and it makes it spin too fast, I've had where they spin too slow. I've got a buddy of mine that likes to do trick shots and just see how far back he can go with and just do one rotation. And he hit the handle just square on the butt end, and it, Newton won out. So the head wanted to keep going because it's technically still two pieces, and just crunched it down on that handle, and that handle was ruined. But that's the beauty thing. You just make another one, you slap it together, and there you go.
I have a friend, well, he retired now from the Ben Pearson Archery Company, who told me once that if you take a compound bow and an arrow from a beginner's set and draw it down and pull back, when you turn it loose, that arrow will explode right here because it's not ready and not made for the kind of power that's going to launch it out of the bow.
Oh, yeah.
So it would stand to reason that if the handle is not properly tuned or put together correctly, it's going to really foul things up aerodynamically.
Aerodynamically to a certain extent, but the big thing is if you don't have it done right, or if the core, so like this one, you'll notice has a laminate construction. So it's ash for the center. The darker pieces on the other side is a wood called sapelli ribbon, which I believe is related to mahogany. And then I've got the maple on the outside. The ash and hickory is what you really want to go with because it's really good at shock absorption. Because when these heads hit, the energy has to go somewhere. And so it vibrates the whole handle. And if you don't have that structural integrity in the handle, what's going to happen is if it's too hard, which you run into with some things like walnut, for instance, it can actually shatter, and it'll break off right there under the head.
No kidding.
And then if you've got some that are too light, the wood will actually compress inside the eye, and then it becomes loose, and then you have another problem where you have a handle that doesn't want to stay put.
You don't want anybody standing behind you.
Not really.
When's the big meet? There's a big axe throwing get together here in the Tulsa area, isn't there?
Yeah, so it's going to be the weekend of April 18th through the 21st, I believe. And that's the actual world's competition. We had people come from all over the world that are here to compete in axe and knife throwing competitions. And it lasts the entire weekend, and it's going to be at the Wee Street Ice Center over there where the old Promenade Mall used to be.
I'd love to see how they get through customs and airport clearance and all that.
Yeah, thankfully I haven't had to go travel internationally yet, but I know when I do it's going to be a doozy.
Stephen, thank you.
Absolutely,
We're really
thank
grateful
you.
for you taking time to come in. Your work is absolutely drop dead beautiful.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And I wish you the best. And keep us posted, will you?
Oh, of course.
Because I got a feeling your rankings are going to change.
I'm hoping.
Well, like I said, keep us posted.
Will do.
All right. Bert Taylor is creative curator at the Will Rogers Memorial Museum, and he'll be along in just a moment.